All right, moving on to the final segment of today's podcast. And this one makes me laugh so much because these people are fucking whiny little loser babies.
You
But
suck!
Democrats and liberals are mad that Republicans are focusing on making election reforms in key Republican controlled battleground states that change the way the elections were handled instead of leaving the old rules that had all these election anomalies that were never investigated. Well, you never investigated the anomalies to show them that the anomalies didn't manipulate the election. They didn't trust the election. What did you expect was going to happen when you told 70 million people that thought the election was manipulated, that the concerns were warrantless? You think they were just going to stand by and do nothing? Now, if you had done an investigation and that investigation said that it was okay and everything went fine, then some of them might have been like, "Oh, all right." But so you brought this on to your fucking self.
Winning?
But anyway,
No.
let's get into this fucking article. The battleground states advancing controversial election and voting bills. Is that Washington? Several battleground states controlled by Republicans have pushed for big changes in voting and election laws in recent months in the wake of the former President Donald Trump's electoral loss and the rise in mail-in voting due to coronavirus pandemic. The states are considering changes to the election laws, such as measures to enforce additional ID requirements, restrict access to drop boxes, and shrink pool of voters. They're not trying to shrink the pool of voters. They're trying to fucking make sure that only legal people vote, and we should. Why are we the only fucking country on the planet where having a voter ID to ensure that only the right people, legal people, fucking vote, citizens vote? Why are we the only one that are bigoted because of that?
You
You
suck!
fucking pieces of shit. It's because you use illegal votes to get fucking. You have been for fucking for decades, hundreds of years, in fact. It goes all the way back. Pennsylvania has a long, Philadelphia has a long fucking history of that. It's fucking documented. These states are considering changes to. Oh, yeah, okay. Arizona, Florida, Texas each have growing and increasingly diverse populations play a substantial role in the outcome of presidential contests. All three have Republican legislators and governorships. Michigan has a Democratic governor, but its Republican controlled legislator is considering several bills that could make absentee voting more difficult. It should be very difficult. Voting by mail is highly susceptible to fraud. This is fact. Arizona and Michigan narrowly supported President Biden in the 2020's election. And the virus, there's a fucking vaccines. The virus is no longer a fucking problem. Having all those emergency pandemic measures no longer make fucking sense anyway. Trump in Florida and Texas, Georgia, and Mr. Biden also won, has already passed a controversial voting law, including some new restrictions. Here is a rundown of some of the key states proposing changes and voting new election laws. Okay, Arizona. The Arizona state legislature has proposed multiple bills to tighten its election laws, including one to shrink the pool of early voters. Early voter. You should only vote early if you absolutely have to. Period.
That's how winning
If
is
there's no
done!
other way for you to vote on time, you vote early. Only that. Most Arizona voters have been casting their ballots by mail for years since the state started allowing mail-in voting for every registered voter 30 years ago. SB 1485, which is fucking retarded, which would eliminate the permanent early voting list and allow voters to automatically receive a mail ballot for every election. You shouldn't automatically receive a mail-in ballot for every election because people throw them out, they get used, and it's fraud. It's still under consideration. It would remove from the list of voters who do not use their early voting ballot in 2 consecutive election cycles. The bill passed twice in the state Senate earlier this year, and an amendment version of the passed in the House last month. The vote of the amended version failed as GOP State Senator Kelly Townsend. She would not vote on any voting related bill until after Senate Republicans completed a recount and audit of the 2020 general election results in Maricopa County. The bill is now under a motion to reconsider at a later date, and that makes fucking sense. Even though I think this audit is just a fucking show to try and restore faith in the election system, like I've already told you in another podcast. Democrats have criticized the audit ordered by Senate Republicans, which is being overseen by Florida-based technology company that is being paid $150,000. Private donors have also contributed to funding for the audit, which may stretch beyond May 14th, the target deadline for its conclusion. The state Superior Court judges ordered that the private contractor conduct the audit to reveal its policies and procedures. The audit is part of a GOP effort to question the results of the Arizona presidential election, which Mr. Biden won by more than 10,000 points. Not until the audit says he did. Another key, there was too many anomalies. Another key election bill, and you can't deny there was anomalies. They were reported on. It's fucking fact.
Winning.
Another
No.
key election bill under consideration is SB 1713, which adds an ID requirement for people voting absentee. The bill will require voters to provide a number from a driver's license, state ID, tribal ID, or their voter registration number, in addition to providing a signature when returning the absentee ballot. Townsend's opposition has temporarily blocked this passage of the bill. Actually, if you're gonna put the ID number in the fucking with you, maybe you should have to take a picture. I don't know, but that's actually kind of reasonable. Florida, Florida legislature passed a sweeping election bill last week that would make significant changes to mail-in voting in the state. A record number of Floridians voted by mail in 2020 election. The bill would add ID requirements for voters requesting to vote by mail, requiring voters to provide earlier driver's licenses, a state ID number, or at least 4 digits of their social security number when asking for mail ballot. Voters would also have to provide this information to register to vote or to update their registration. Other provisions, including limited drop box locations, restricting the hours some drop boxes can be accessed, and giving more power to partisan poll watchers during certain points of the ballot review. It would also ban private funds for elections, limit who can return absentee ballots, put new requirements in place for settling lawsuits over election law, and expand the radius of outside groups engaging in any activity with the intent to influence the voters over to 150 feet. Nice. Like that, we need to keep doing that. Florida's been leading the way during this crisis. Florida Republican Governor Don DeSantis has praised its state's handling of the 2020 election, but it said that the bill is about making further improvements. We think we led the nation, but we're trying to stay ahead of the curve to make sure that elections are run well. DeSantis told Fox News last week DeSantis signed the bill on Thursday morning, barring all media except Fox News from attending the signing. Democrats said that the new rules will make it more difficult to vote. No, it won't make it more difficult to vote. And even if it does, good. Voting should be the most difficult thing you can do in a society, because we should ensure that only people that should and can vote, vote. And I don't mean by should, by people, oh, that color, or that sex shouldn't be allowed to vote, or that sexual orientation, or any of that fucking garbage that you keep attributing to it. I'm talking about legal fucking citizens of the United States of America.
That's how winning is done.
It should be. Voting should be the most difficult thing you do in a fucking civil society. You don't place deliberate barriers in folks' way and call it security, said Democratic State Representative Travis Davis. This is an insult to me personally, and this is an insult to the millions of voters that depend on us to make decisions. You're the insult for them, especially when it comes down to election law. I'm sorry for my bias on this, but like, our election system is trash right now. The Michigan Senate has been holding hearings on some of the election bills that Republicans introduced in March. The legislation package will make significant changes to the state's election process. You get the picture. You can figure out all the other people's fucking what other states are doing yourselves, and you can read it and do things like that because you've seen where it came from and such. But I don't understand why we're trying to make it easy. If fraud can be done by a way of voting, then that way of voting should absolutely be eliminated. The least amount of, if mail-in voting makes it easier, okay, no mail-in voting. Paper ballots, an armed guard, count them, a live count, like a live count with its tallies, and you can monitor it. I don't know. We're technologically advanced civilization, and we can figure it the fuck out. I'm just saying. But anyways, that's all we have for today. As always, I'm Dr. Mo. This has been my thought of the day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.